Well, good afternoon. I'm going to be talking about a search for roaring dragons. And at the end of my talk, I'm going to ask you to roar, being in Wales, if you feel it's appropriate for what's around that. And I'm going to be talking a little bit around fire and passion and imagination and the role of that in reshaping our country. This is the first map of Wales that was drawn by Abraham Ortelius just over 400 years ago. And my talk is going to be about the idea that in a small country that's already committed to sustainability, there is no better time or place to start to take this stuff seriously. So this, in many ways, is about redrawing our map of Wales and make it fit for the current times as well as that. And on the way, visit a couple of ideas around the myths, legends, and heroes. This is Dewi Sant, St. David. I'm from St. David's. I was born there. And St. David has become an icon of very much about the way that we live and is the center of our community. And in the world of myths around heroes, this is my copy of Myths Monthly. If you don't get it, you should. Myths Monthly features stories like Nobody Likes Change. It's a kind of odd one because the familiar things in post offices and small corner shops about the National Lottery is testament to the fact that people dream every single day about change. I just think they like change that they feel that they got a charge of the outcome from. They don't like change that's imposed. There's an irony with the lottery, of course, that if you win, there's a 50-50 chance you'll be less happy than you were before, and there's a greater chance of being hit by lightning than hitting the lottery. But that's a kind of a separate thing. And so that there's something about really, let's debunk the myths that stop us taking this seriously. This lovely Banksy piece of art in London a little while ago. There's a myth that people don't believe this stuff. The vast majority of the population know what's going on, and my talk's not going to be around that. So I want to appreciate that we're very much entering a new set of times with new paradigms. We've got a bunch of new ways of doing things, and yet the same rules still apply in many ways to what's going to be happening to us. And one of those rules is that the world gets shaped by nature. This is on a headland near us. And the bushes that you see are shaped by the gales and winds and the salt that blows in off the Atlantic. When we look around us, the whole world and every single species, up until our current one, Homo ignorans, has been shaped by nature. We haven't yet really earned the title of Homo sapiens. The comedian Jasper Carrott has a very famous put down, which could have been intended for a species, which says, you know what, you're not as stupid as you look. You get that kind of wry smile, thank you. And he says, the funny thing is, I don't think that you could be. You know, as a species, we're not as stupid as we look. But the signals are out there about what's going on. There are patterns that abound every single day that we can interpret and get information from if we choose to see them. Patterns in the land, patterns in animals, patterns in nature that we can interpret in different ways to take different messages rather than assuming that the same kinds of things are going to be happening every day. There are rhythms that pretty much every other species pays attention to. The rhythms of the seasons, the rhythms of the days, the rhythms of our lives that we've kind of forgotten in our busy way of doing things. So let's pay attention and noticing the cadence that nature runs to. And let's pay attention to noticing which is the odd one out. By numbers on the beach, it's the seal. On the Gesset, a beach around the corner from my house. The odd one out. By numbers, isn't it strange where the thing that stands out as being shouldn't be there is the seal, not the plastic rubbish on the beach. So let's notice what seems to no longer fit time and place in terms of what's going on and think about what that might mean. And let's notice scale with this. This is the edge of a field I walked past on a footpath in West Wales recently. And it's staggering to notice how thin that layer of soil is. That's the stuff that our life depends on. That tiny layer at the top of the rock is what grows all of our food. And yet we care not really for what's going on. And on the same walk, a few minutes before, we'd come across this rusting tractor in the field, which I got my kids and a nephew to pose on. And there's a kind of irony about the appropriateness of the tools and the ages of the land and how we're working this stuff, where the average age of the farmer in the UK is approaching 60 years old. Now, either it's a retirement hobby for a load of people that we don't know about, or something's happening that doesn't really make sense. Because these kids, if we're not careful, will grow up without understanding where their food comes from. And we risk losing a heritage that is absolutely key to the way we go forwards. These are potato boxes in my brother-in-law's farm. And the potato boxes, where they chip the potatoes, they let them sprout before planting. They go in the earth, just in case you didn't know that. These, on the boxes, you get the names of the farmers who grew them and where they came from. A lot of these farms have gone out of business. So let's understand what's under our feet and around our places. And remember perhaps the power of community. We have near St. David's, we have a CSA, which is a community-supported agriculture project. And people go, yeah, this kind of stuff is all good, but it's all more expensive and really tricky. It's another one of the Myths Monthly stories. And this on the scales you'll see behind it, I don't know if you can see the number there. That was a 9-kilo bag of organic fresh vegetables for £8. £8 buys you 9 kilos of organic fresh vegetables, grown in the land with no pesticides, no herbicides, no wrapping around that, no packaging. And for every 70 households that sign up, you could create a full-time job back on the land. And yet we still talk about supermarkets as being convenient. This little tuft here of flowers grows on the most exposed headland in Wales, about 10 meters from the sea. So there's something about understanding if you want to be resilient, you've got to have really strong roots, and these are rooted deep into the rock. But there's a connection between every single part of that plant that gives it the strength to weather the storms and take what's going on in that. And within it, we've got to find space for love. And that's about love of nature and finding time to rejoice. This is a windy, wet day we walked in this valley. And just the dripping moss and rain was an incredible thing. And if you don't experience that, it's really hard to care for something if there's no love. So finding time in nature to do that is kind of important. But it's also key that we take our kind of magnifying glass and look and see what's going on here. And I had a look on Google for this next phrase, which is we're committed to sustainable development. Do try it. Because the most unlikely range of companies click up when we're saying we're really committed to sustainable development. You can have tobacco companies, gun makers, all this kind of stuff committed to those kind of things. It's just pretty odd. So what we started asking is the question, so what does good enough look like in terms of commitment and in terms of action? This is my life's work on this whole slide, so I hope it takes something away with you. And the framing is this. We can go 0 to 10 in terms of how effective we are, and either based on compliance on this side or consciousness on this side. We have a choice between incrementally improving things, making them better, but it makes no difference. Or you can celebrate successfully reaching the wrong goals. So our current goal on biodiversity is to halt the loss, even though 60% of ecosystems are in decline. We can spend time in tree hugger land in the bottom right-hand side. Huge passion, huge knowledge, but not much ability to do what happened, to make change happen, or we can focus on doing what's needed. And we call that space R10, or the real 10 out of 10, which is asking what that would look like, and that means building awareness, shifting capability, and really underpinning the essentials of what's happening between these different sectors around helping businesses understand what's going, help government understand how to make change happen and build capability in our communities to do that. So that for me, there's a thing about, do we walk the old path and end up just ticking the box and moving the compliance game forwards, or do we search a new one around what good enough looks like? And I ask people, how old would children need to be to understand this funny stuff called food? You know, how old do kids need to be able to grow food, move that kind of stuff forwards? 20? 15? 5? What is it that our kids would be doing in school today, or on Monday, whenever day it is, if we were really serious about this stuff, growing not just a bit of cress on a potato head, but growing food that you can eat, what might they be doing in secondary school to be resourceful, to recognize that every single skipful of rubbish is a skipful of money that we've yet to find value from? Wouldn't it be odd if our children, in a world of good enough, actually spent time working on things that mattered to the people that might employ them? It'd be odd, wouldn't it? Because it's very, very different to what's going on now. So what we're on a mission to do is understand how you can get a whole country to embed real-time problem solving in communities. We've been working with Trinity at St David's, and they've got a pass rate of 15%. From me anyway, because the pass rate of 15% is 15% of the entire content of the university that from next year will be seen through a sustainability lens. Every single subject seen through a sustainability lens, which is the first in the country to do that. Within our communities, would you not want to audit how much of that foodstuff could be grown in the land around where you live? And understand the economic and social value in that, and how much waste you can eliminate, how many jobs you can secure. And funny thing, you could probably get kids to work that out and link it with local businesses. We might ask in the organizations that we work with, what percentage of my employees would I want to really understand what's coming? If I was serious about the future. 1%? 2%? There's a model that looks at innovation of change and so on, and it might say we need to get to 10%. So in the city council here, that's 2,000 people we need to get up to speed with understanding this really different kind of future. In the world of business, the change seems to be that with the new business models, you don't see them coming until it's too late. Kodak would be a good example of that, or Amazon and traditional booksellers. So at what stage are the organizations in Wales, in our country, going to start to really mess around with prototyping that next game? And at what stage are we going to start messing around with asking, is it more important to be right or to be safe? And thinking about how much time we want to put into that. How do we make our own homework, this idea of turning scrap into gold? How do we turn things that have no longer got a purpose in the world we're in now into something that can be a level of gold for the future? So a couple of little tools. One of which is this idea that, I'm not expecting you to read all this in the back, but this is a profile of people's knowledge across 25 indicators around biodiversity, energy, waste, money, marketing, that you would want everyone to know if we're serious about this. We're running a program with Cambridge University to profile this so people can take content from places like TED and the Do Lectures and other places to free top-up knowledge for those who want it, based on, in effect, a sustainable training needs analysis based on the future. I think it's really important that we play at scale. This is a wave at Mavericks off the coast of California. Funny thing is, people do this for fun. But they don't go and surf waves like this on day one. They surf waves like this after they practiced, but practice and practice and practice till you get to a point where you can fall off stuff like this and get up and go, "Whew, that's okay." So we need to understand what scale looks like in our world of making things happen. I think we need to relearn how to party. Most events that I go to around sustainability are more dire than the wakes that I go to of dear friends who departed. Because at least at the wakes I go to, people do talk about good times and have a few beers. So why is it? I've been dying to sit on this couch. So why is it? Why is it that we stop having the ability to bring song and music and humor and entertainment into the world of making a difference? That's kind of odd to me. How is it that we need to explore new territories, get more people to come to space like this to hear completely different stories about things that never occurred to us before? What does that look like in the world of work, government, education? Bearing in mind that exploration would be good enough for the future. It's not just better than it was, because better doesn't count when nature comes calling. How do we better learn that when we're baking bread, to bake 2 loaves, always instead of one, and give one away. Because it doesn't take much more effort, and it's a nice thing to do. And do that with the knowledge, do that with our projects. And in the words of St. David, how do we learn to do the little things that you remember me by, in his words? How do we do that stuff? Always, every day, and make those little bits count. But most of all, how do we learn to celebrate the things that do work, that are out there in our country today, that are indicators of things that are fit for the future, that are good enough, that we can make really start to happen, and prototype a country that's fit for the future. Reinvent the next industrial age to take Wales into a different place that creates jobs, creates opportunities, and makes us Homo sapiens rather than Homo ignorans. So what I would ask you to do, if you're in a mood to be part of that, is to share with me and give a big dragon's roar to kick off this TEDx in Cardiff. On 1, 2, 3, a nice big dragon's roar. Roar! Thank you very much.